All right, welcome to my short PowerPoint on my first impressions of the Edge of Fate. We're going to get straight into it, and we're going to get into the hot topic debate issue, Matterspark. Also, feel free to just listen to this video because besides my PowerPoint, there's not going to be too much action on the screen, and you're going to be seeing the same slide for a while, so this is definitely a more of an audio listening experience than anything, so don't feel bad on that end. Now, let's get into it. So, here's what we're going to be discussing about Matterspark. First, what is it? How does it work? What is it revisited once we understand how it works? The good parts, the bad parts, and the ugly parts about Matterspark. So, what is it? In simple terms, it's a fusion of arc, light, with dark matter, which equals molecules moving unbelievably fast. Pretty simple explanation. Now that we know the lore reason, let's see how it actually manifests in-game. Alright, very simply, how does it work? The answer is simply, you turn into a ball. Like, technically, you're not a ball, you're like a sphere of concentrated dark matter and arc, but we can simplify it till you become a ball. So what does this new transformation mode allow you to do? Well, it allows you to access inaccessible locations, like what you see in the picture provided here. However, it is the only way to access these inaccessible locations, and in that, there is usually only one way to access the location. So technically, while we're in a ball, we are small enough to pass through these little pipes. However, we aren't actually able to pass through the pipes. Instead, we have to find the little hole and tube we need to traverse through and go through that. And that's the only way to access this location. And once we reach that certain location, attacks can charge certain objects like the pylons. Boom. However, Matterspark is the only way to charge these pylons, even though it just seems like we're just using arc. So upon revisiting it, what is it in game? And Matterspark is more of a mechanic than it is an ability, although it is technically both. Matterspark acts as the key. The pylons are technically locked because that usually allows you to access damage phase, and you need Matterspark in order to even charge the pylon up. So let's move on to my thoughts on Matterspark and Mattermorph and the Relocator, which are all the brand new mechanics added into Kepler. Alright, so let's simply start with the good of Matterspark, then move on to the bad and the ugly. So the good. So ball mode is fun, asterisk. Being in ball mode means you're going pretty fast, like the way the camera zooms out, your FOV increases. Ball mode does feel pretty good because you're going fast, and usually when you're going fast, speed is good. There's a whole reason there's a game franchise called Need for Speed. However, let's quickly move on over to the ugly. Obtaining Matterspark in world is glitching. Funnily enough, once you access the ability to gain and transform into Matterspark anywhere at any time, most of these glitches go away. I'll pull up a clip here of the camera completely spazzing out the first time I equip Matterspark. Matterspark here. Oh, okay. Very glitchy whenever I pick up Matterspark. This does seem to be more of a ultra wide issue, and with the patch that came out on this Tuesday, most of these issues were seemingly fixed, but also I didn't have any of these issues as soon as I could just use Matterspark in replacement of my skimmer. So while becoming the ball is fun, minus the visual glitches, how Matterspark is actually used is not the greatest, to be honest. Most of the problem comes down to the puzzles not even being puzzles, and the ones that are available are they're not puzzles. It's hard to even they're just not puzzles. Finding the hole while you're in the Matterspark mode, trying to go into the hole and charging a pylon, that's not a puzzle. I understand that, the Destiny player base is 2 standard deviations below the average IQ of an individual, but come on. They aired way too much on the side of the solutions being easy and ended up just having more of these easy solutions rather than having one challenging puzzle per encounter and then just having us solve that puzzle. So that's where Matterspark really falls short, in the fact that the puzzles are not puzzles. I will say that the final mission is the only real mission where the mechanics of Matterspark are finally realized. Most of the puzzles still aren't that advanced, but we are doing cool stuff like going through cannons and whatnot while in Matterspark mode, trying to keep it as spoiler free as possible while we're in Matterspark form, and it's stuff like that. That's oh, okay, there is actually more potential than just find the hole, go to the hole, charge a pylon. Even though there is plenty of that, even in the final mission, it's the puzzles are really just not puzzles. And that's where the biggest pain point for me on where my opinion of Matterspark is. Like, if the puzzles were more advanced and we had to do more things while in Matterspark mode, or potentially if Matterspark wasn't the only way to complete these puzzles or something, then, you know, I'd have a little bit more leeway towards it. But like, in reality, nothing really is done with Matterspark up until that final mission. I will say though, it is actually kind of good though to have actual mechanics in a campaign. Like, I recently played The Witch Queen and Lightfall. I mean, not even in terms of me being a relatively new player. I mean, I literally replayed them when I did my Hunter Lock, and Lightfall I did basically with almost all white gear. And those campaigns had like actually like no mechanics at all. The Final Shape finally added some, but it only really got like any mechanic heavy at the very final mission of the boss of the Final Shape when you're facing the Witness. And that was like the only mission that had like, oh, you actually have like a timer here. You have to go shoot the ball to get Darkness. Then you have to actually go pick up the Aegis, then shoot the Subjugator shielded, then go stand in the well light and shield. It's like, wow, that was like the only mission out of the previous 3 campaigns that had like any sort of actual mechanics. So I will say them finally adding some sort of mechanic in the campaign is at least a positive in my book. Like, the implementation, not the greatest. The idea, it's there. We know, I know that the final mission is proof of concept of there being more to do with Matterspark. It's just the rest of the campaign, it's just not realized at all, and that really drags down the main mechanic of the entire expansion. I will say though, the relocator is based, and I really wish we got way more relocator puzzles. And in fact, I just wish there were more relocator pads like spread throughout the world just to like help with like traversal. But like, the relocator is definitely where they should have put in more attention and time, probably into like the puzzles rather than Matterspark. Like, the one puzzle, once again, in the final mission where you actually have to use a relocator to like, we actually have to use a relocator in a like more than a 0 IQ way, to be honest. It's like, oh, you actually have to think about how you're going to use the relocator and how you're going to time your shot and whatever. That was sick. But other than that, once again, it's not like any of the puzzles involving the relocator were that complicated, to be honest. And that is kind of disappointing. And both these mechanics, primarily Matterspark, does lean into the whole ugly part of how most bosses are DPS, do a puzzle, aka find the hole, charge a pylon. Oh god, wow, how complicated. Then do more DPS. It's basic, and it's pretty much how every other Destiny, you know, phase is. They get to damage, like, oh, you have to do the mechanic, then you can do damage. But especially with Matterspark and how little you're actually doing, the formula becomes pretty obvious and pretty boring. Like, we definitely needed to do more puzzles during fights rather than them being segmented, especially since the puzzles aren't really puzzles. And where we turn into like a transformation, kind of like Matterspark, implementing this in actual combat sections where like, oh, once you get like a temporary health bar and you're able to take a bit more damage because you have a new health bar as well, and you know, you're fast, so you can actually avoid enemy attacks. Like, this was like the perfect opportunity to actually implement some sort of puzzle into actual damage phases, and like, oh, you have to do the puzzle while also doing damage or whatever. Boom. Or just like, honestly, it's really just comes down to the puzzles like just being so like brainless that like, oh, it's just, yeah, the puzzles are just not good. Like, they're not puzzles. That's kind of the problem. Like, there's only so much I can hammer in that point over and over again. The puzzles are not puzzles, and that's pretty much where most of the problems were with these mechanics come in from. And going back to the bad, you know, I've harped on the puzzles, I keep on harping on the puzzles, but I haven't talked about Mattermorph at all, and that's because Mattermorph is pretty useless, mainly because of how ambitious of a concept it is. Like, Mattermorph is supposed to change how you're supposed to interact with the world, but it never does, and to be honest, it's kind of hard for them to implement Matterspark actually changing the way you interact in the world without like them investing so much time into building locations specifically with the idea of you being able to use Mattermorph and Matterspark and the relocator at the same time. Like, Mattermorph is a mechanic that would require an entire game to be built around it, and if they wanted to implement Mattermorph in a more fleshed out way, like, you'd probably just straight up have to get rid of Matterspark and the relocator. So yeah, Mattermorph, like, in the picture provided, oh, you use Mattermorph on, you know, objects that are highlighting green, and then you can actually complete whatever puzzle you need to. So that's in the parentheses you can see there, it's required, and that's part of the problem. Like, Mattermorph is required, and when it is required, it doesn't actually ever really change how you interact with the world. It's more like, oh, I use Mattermorph to then use Matterspark. Boom. All right, so those are the main mechanics of Kepler. Overall, I do at least appreciate them trying to add mechanics. I do think that overextended their hand, and I think implementing like one of them would probably have been fine, but they definitely overcomplicated themselves, like their job, by implementing Matterspark and Mattermorph and the relocator. Like, sure, the primary focus is always on Matterspark, but then that just makes Mattermorph kind of completely neglected. And when the relocator is there, I'm like, oh, if only they only focused on the relocator instead of like Matterspark, then we probably could have gotten more like complicated puzzles. So it's one of those things where it's like, we have good ideas, but we really just needed to focus in on one of them. And preferably, I hope they do bring back the relocator, because I do think the puzzles where you have to use the relocator to like, you know, shoot and teleport to different places were by far the best implementations of any sort of puzzle. All right, moving on to the campaign and characters. Overall, I thought the narrative for this expansion, Edge of Fate, was fantastic, and that seems to be the common sentiment. Like, overall, everyone kind of agrees, or that seems to be the consensus, that the story and narrative was at least pretty good, and I definitely did not find myself too lost or confused at any point. I will say, a lot of time, there is actually so much dialogue that at the beginning of certain missions, I would just like not move or go or like walk or traverse or do anything just so I could actually hear the dialogue. And there is a lot of it, especially since there are side quests that are just basically there for more narrative more. And I will say all the missions do connect to each other pretty well, and that does lend to the design of Kepler, which has its, you know, upsides and downsides. I will say the interconnectivity of Kepler is definitely the best feeling of the worlds I've experienced so far, but there is no real, like, what Kepler is missing is like two key standout locations. Like, Kepler needs like two just like set pieces that are also naturally a part of the world, because the entire final mission is like basically a set piece. But that's there, and that is the final mission. But we needed something else to exist within the rest of Kepler to act as like those giant set piece moments or set piece locations. And I think that's primarily what is letting the design of Kepler down, because I feel like the overall aesthetic, the colors, to me, they're like, I didn't really have any issues with it. Traversing the world honestly somehow felt the most like intuitive it has before. Like every other world before this, like especially like, to be fair to the Pale Heart, every location was amazing. It was just that it was completely linear. Like there was no real exploration. It was like go straight. And same thing in New Muna. New Muna had a little bit more, you know, hiddenness thanks to its, you know, verticality. But honestly, there was not that much verticality outside of like the tower that you used to like jump off of. But at least New Muna did have like an excellent, like, you know, color scheme, theming. Had like the Radioson had the giant spinny thing, you know, in the middle of the city. It did have the tower, so it did have those, you know, set piece locations that really help, you know, sell the location. And 17th Stone World had really, really high highs, but also like the regular marsh areas were like were not good at all. But most of the you know, actual newly built Lucent Hive, not technically Lucent Hive, just the Lucent areas, you know, after blah blah stuff doing getting light, those areas all look fantastic. The color scheme is on point. The designs look really good. However, there's not really much exploration there. It's, you know, pretty basic. It's all just go through this, you know, go through this hallway. That's clearly a loading screen for the next area. So there wasn't really much exploration there. And I think they really focused in on making the world way more interconnected, which made the mission design and flow feel pretty good. It's just that without those set piece locations, the world is kind of missing, you know, some of that grandiosity that Destiny usually has. And, you know, this screenshot, you know, it looks pretty epic, but as far as I am aware, you can't actually access the location. And that's kind of a shame, because if this giant cliff and like the boat in the sand was actually accessible on Kepler, that would probably help the world, you know, feel like that much greater. But I will say, you know, the final mission, especially the final part of the final mission, oh man, that was peak. That was like jaw dropping. I was actually stunned the first time. Okay, that's a set piece. Clearly that's where they spent an enormous amount of time developing. We just needed like a beginning set piece and like a middle set piece, and then that as a final set piece to tie everything together. Then, you know, I think the world would have been that much better, because like, while I do like the interconnectivity, like I mentioned a trillion times, it does feel like it doesn't have some of that epicness that Destiny usually does. On the side of the characters, Lodi, I mean, actual peak character, Ikora, like learning everything about her backstory and how eventually she came to understand things. That was also like pretty solid. The Drifter's character progression, even though like I'm not too completely up to aware of everything he did, just from Heresy into now, like there's a really, really good flow of everything. And like, you know, his role at the end was really good. So like Drifter, some great progression there. Orin was, to me, the weakest character, and that's kind of surprising that the story didn't actually focus more on her, but she is a solid foil to Lodi. It's just that Lodi and Ikora really stole the show. And Savin's voice actor, Deborah Wilson, did voice Ikora. I know Ikora's voice lines will be recast. And at the beginning, it was kind of jarring, but the more and more lines Deborah Wilson said as Ikora, the less I was like, oh, she's just trying to fit into Ikora, and more is like, oh, she actually realized her own character. So it's really only those early voice lines that were completely off, but especially by the end of it, like, it was like, okay, Deborah Wilson found out how she wanted to voice Ikora and everything. And I gotta say, the campaigns were the campaign. I mean, the campaign narrative was pretty good. The gameplay, like, you know, I discussed with Matterspark, but the cutscenes were unbelievably peak. Like, dude, the graphical fidelity of the cutscenes, like, I remember seeing when I first started playing, the first Destiny cutscene I saw was the Lightfall cutscene of the Witness, like, blasting into the Traveler or whatever. But the fidelity on these cutscenes is actually insane. Like it's crazy. Like, it's actually insane how high quality these cutscenes are. Especially the Ikora cutscene, the direction on that, like they got like an actual director. Everything was timed. The music, that was peak. That, like, the Ikora cutscene was unironically like just that one cutscene. It's so mind blowing. Like, I want to replay the campaign just to get to that cutscene, and just to get the last cutscene and that final location again. Like, man, Lodi, they completely nailed as a new character. I mean, he's just a chill guy. How he reacted and everything learned from him, and the way he acts at the beginning to how he then acts, you know, towards the middle, and how his character, you know, learns more and more at the very end is excellent. It feels like he's not annoying at all. Like, well, there's like a couple moments where he can be kind of annoying, but it's more like he's annoying in service to how his reactions are, like, actually raw and pretty, you know, real, compared to, like, well, the obvious punching bag is Nimbus. I didn't find Nimbus that annoying, to be honest. But I mean, he's not like cracking, like, when he does make a joke, it's like actual joke, and it's not like the most, like, it's not like Nimbus saying the worst line at, like, what, mission 6 of Lightfall, when he's like, or the final mission of Lightfall, where it was like saying dumb shit, the title of, like, oh my god, like, dude, some of those Nimbus lines actually were kind of really bad, not gonna lie. There was also the villain of the campaign. He's pretty campy. He's honestly, the line delivery is excellent. Like, the voice actor definitely nailed those lines. I do wish we got to see a lot more of the Archon, though, mainly to showcase, like, you know, some more of their influence. Like, it was cool hearing it's cool hearing like some of the voice lines or whatever from the Archon, but I feel like we didn't get to see as much as the Archon as I would have liked. And that kind of just weakens the impact of the Archon as a villain, although they are just, you know, they're just a one-shot villain, because the main villain for what I assume is probably gonna be, maybe not the entirety of Edge of Fate, but one of the primary antagonists is Maya Sundaresh, or the Conductor. And I want to like Maya as the Conductor, because I definitely like the backstory. I definitely like some of the story reveals and revelations in Echo, but there's something not quite there with her yet, and I think it kind of has to do with how episode Echoes ends and how Maya, the Conductor, becomes irrelevant in the story. There's kind of like a disconnect in, like, the power scaling, to be honest, and it feels kind of weird. Like, sure, she has the Echo of Command, but, like, is the Echo of Command that strong when, like, the events of end of end of Echoes happened. Like, so it's like there's a bit of a disconnect to understanding Maya and how much power, like how she's able to wield that much power. And to be honest, a lot of her actual like important like backstory is hidden in Veil Containment. Like, I don't think I would like Maya as a conductor as much if I had not learned all the backstory from Veil Containment. Because like when I played through Echoes, what I really liked was the foil between Osiris, Saint, Maya, and Kiyomi. But it was only until I actually listened to the dialogue in Veil Containment that I was like, oh, okay. So I feel like a lot more of that information needs to get put into a future campaign or something, just in order to make you understand Maya as a conductor a bit more. Because, you know, while I do know the lore and some backstory, it's like, it feels like, you know, there's something missing. And it just might be, you know, we haven't actually like faced her properly. And the one time we did face her, spoilers for the end of episode Echoes, Ikora literally like one taps her with a Nova Bomb. She falls back into the Vex River. And that was just so underwhelming. It was like, really? So Maya, as like an arch villain, needs a little bit of work. I do like the design of the Coral Vex and whatnot. So at least she has that. I do think her design is fine. Like, you know, she's an EXO, which makes sense for her character. It's just that there's something missing. I'm not quite sure on what it is, but hopefully once I replay the campaign, once I, you know, can dig a little bit more into the lore, I'll be able to nail down that feeling, because I do plan on doing a full-on campaign commentary. This is just, you know, my first impressions, because, you know, I do need to replay the campaign because there's a lot of dialogue, which I appreciate. And speaking of dialogue, there is also dialogue text boxes that some NPCs have. Voice acting is incredibly expensive, and to be honest, if in exchange for, you know, maybe less voice lines or maybe the same amount of voice lines, because to be honest, there's so much dialogue. It's not like I honestly don't, I feel like there's more voice lines than normal, to be honest. But if we can get more text boxes and dialogue boxes in the future, just to have even more explanation of things or reveal more character thoughts or interact with some more minor characters, I'm actually down for that, to be honest. Like if Destiny just turns on to a full-on, you know, RPG, I mean, come on, that'd be peak. But I'm speaking for myself. But yeah. Oh, the other important group of characters, the 9. I'm honestly surprised by how much we hear from the 9. And, you know, the 9 all have pretty good characterization. It's actually, I'm honestly impressed by the writing team on how they managed to make each member of the 9, you know, feel pretty distinct. I will say during the story, the fact that the 9 dialogue isn't in the subtitles until they're like actually speaking is a little confusing. Like it pops up as like, you know, whenever the game tells you a little bit of information over like your weapon bar or whatever. But like if all of those got put into subtitles, that'd be probably a little bit smoother. But also I guess if you don't have subtitles on, then that can be a problem. So I understand why they did it the way they did. But I am honestly, the 9 communicate to us a lot more. And I guess it makes sense because Lodi is now the new emissary. So obviously there's like, you know, a lot more communication that needs to be done, and how they respond to Orin leaving and whatnot is pretty interesting. And I will say what they did with 3 is honestly really good. Like seriously, like the narrative and campaign, and especially what they did with 3 and 9 is also pretty good. The Sun, oh man, they really they were in the kitchen. They were cooking, bro. All right, moving on. We have the enemies. We have Vex Imps as an enemy type, which are basically like the Vex version of the Husk, where you have to shoot, you know, the surrounding little imps before shooting the central hive mind. I do really like that thematic leaning. And if you shoot the hive mind middle one first, the little mini ones on the side will come attack you, kind of like the Husks, little parasites. And honestly, I really like the design. I dig the Vex. Really hoping, you know, we get, clearly the Vex are becoming more and more of a threat, which is cool. I like that. I dig, you know, like I keep on saying, I dig the Vex. Really hoping for that Vex Dragon. We're gonna get it. I know we're gonna get it. It's gonna happen. Vex Dragon, please. I need a Vex Dragon in my veins right now. Corsairs are also a pretty good enemy design. They're part of the House Exile, and honestly, the design and animation work on the Corsairs are peak cringe, I hate flying enemies. No, and they added 2 of them, by the way. But no, seriously, Corsairs are a really good new enemy type. They're anti-melee when they come down and they spin their jetpack blasters on the ground in a circle. Like, the animation work is fantastic. Like, my God, that's an annoying move. And yeah, they are flying around. So when they're in like confined locations, it's not so bad. But when, you know, they can actually fly around, you know, oh, learn aim, baby. It's like, gotta go hit up aim labs. So while both of the enemy designs are pretty good, I will say what we're missing is some sort of mini boss design. Like, technically Corsairs are kind of there, but not really. Like, they're like an elite, and we need another mini boss, like kind of like the subjugators or kind of like the tormentors, to fill in that spot. And I think that was what was missing the most out of the enemy variety here. I would also like to have seen the House Exile on this planet carry a bit more, you know, of the fungal trope. Like, I would like to see more mushrooms and spores sprouting from them, rather than, you know, them just being repainted green. And I think that would have also helped. They could have attached some sort of mechanic maybe to the enemies with the spores, like, oh, you shoot a spore or whatever, and explodes in poison gas, so you can't like go to the enemy, or you can't take space until the poison off clears or whatever. So I think there could have been a little bit more variation done onto the basic enemy types to help differentiate them more. But I do at least like that we're getting new enemy types, and both the enemy types here are pretty good. Big fan of the Veximps, especially. All right, moving on to the exotic weapons. I haven't had time to play all the exotic armor pieces quite yet. I still need to do the campaign on my Titan and Hunter, so I can only talk about the Warlock exotic, and I'll probably have a build video going on that. I will say Unia is better on higher levels of difficulties than it is on lower. It's not the most exciting playstyle, but it is at the very least, you know, pretty good at ignition chaining. But I'm going to talk about the weapons instead, since they're more universally applicable. Third iteration was broken, thanks to it's somehow gaining like 3 times damage, because I think it technically fires 3 shots, because there's, you know, technically it's not firing 3 shots, it's a single shot with like 3 bullets. And that was proccing 3 times, I believe, like probably for each like projectile with the anti-barrier mod. That got patched, but it's still pretty good. Like, the first shot wasn't bugged or anything. And I will say the gimmick of holding down the charge, getting a precision kill, or I technically don't, it doesn't have to be a precision kill, but precision kill is just easier to proc on ads, and you turn invisible and you can like move to a different location. It fulfills a pretty decent fantasy. I don't really like scout rifles, to be honest, and the reload on this thing is so bad, but I'm not gonna lie, playing with, you know, the weapon being a bit broken for, you know, a week was fun. It was good to like change up from my typical just play bows only. So it was like, you know, having a different play style wasn't too bad. Probably not a weapon I'm gonna come back to. It's because it's not really a playstyle like I care for. Like, sure, I can go invisible on a, you know, Warlock now, but like, it's kind of pointless. And it, like, the weapon was clearly broken, by the way. Like, oh my God, it was so busted. So it definitely deserved the nerf. And by it, like, technically is a nerf, but it's more tuned to in line to how it should be as a exotic primary. Graviton Spike, I haven't played with as much. The quest to get it was okay. Like, it was pretty straightforward. It was just more lore stuff. I will say the gimmick of switching between stasis and arc is really cool. I hope we get way more weapons like this, especially since, you know, we have prismatic and we need to fill that light and dark transcendence meter if you're playing on prismatic, which I wasn't for the campaign. I was on sunbracers. But I really like the gimmick of the hand cannon, even though it's not a weapon I'm going to be using all that much, because like I'm stuck on bows, and if I'm not using a bow, I'm using Choir of One, and if I'm not using Choir of One, I'm on Lord of Wolves because I have to be. So it's one of those situations where it's like, if I can use a bow, I'll use a bow. If I have to use the Choir of One or Lord of Wolves, I'll be on that. But it is a fun weapon to play around with, to be honest. I do like the gimmick a lot. I don't have the Callus for it quite yet. Callus do seem to be a bit more involved, because they actually require you to complete some puzzles and whatnot. So once that gets done, will that change my mind? No, none of the Callus are like anything that crazy. Like, I literally don't. I think the best Callus is Subsistence, which is good. And don't get me wrong, Subsistence would be great on this weapon. It's just like, you know, it's, to me, it's still a hand cannon. If it was a bow, peak, that'd be crazy. But I do like the gimmicks of both these weapons. The Graviton Spike a lot more than third iteration, but I do at least understand the fantasy of third iteration. Even though Graviton Spike is just so much cooler. Like, Graviton Spike, honestly, sick. Like, it's a really good design. Really good. Right, moving on to the Portal versus the Director. Oh boy, some spicy stuff. Technically not part of the expansion, so we're moving more into the general update side of things. As a newer-ish player, like I only started playing last year, the Director is a confusing nightmare, to be honest. Like Vanguard, Gambit, Crucible, and Legends, those are simple, but at like every other planet is just a confusing mess to figure out where stuff is and what to do. And honestly, that is an issue that can be solved. Like as long as they update, like, because there's the icons, like, you know, below the planets, but you have, as a newer-ish player, none of those icons are ever explained. It's like, yeah, just memorize it by remembering the icon of the activities on the planet. It's like, so in that respect, it's like not good at all. But the tooltips for each planet could definitely be expanded on to just tell you what's on each planet. And if they did that, that would be a way superior solution. I will say the Portal is not that bad. Like, people are like, oh, it looks like a mobile game. I'm like, it just looks like another menu, to be honest. Like, oh no, there's boxes. Does that make it a mobile game? I guess. But like, I feel like most UI in Destiny is pretty clean, pretty simple. And like, there's nothing like too, like this seems like fit in kind of fine. I will say the instant quick play box on the screen though might be what's like tipping people over, mainly because it's like, who in the world needs a quick play that quick? Like you can quick play as soon as you click into solo, Fireteam, Pinnacle, or Crucible, but you need a quick play instantly on the Portal screen. Maybe, I don't know. Like I'm not quite sure on who the instant quick play features are for, and that might be giving off some of the more, you know, mobile-y vibes because it's like so instant, and it's like, come on, you can click at least one of the options in the menu. And on Twitter, the Destiny 2 team actually went ahead and responded to the Portal and World tabs. So, Portal and World tabs, we are going to revert the desaturation to the World tab in an upcoming update. Honestly, because of how, I don't think it was just the Director tab that was desaturated. Like on my screen, like the Portal and the Director tab have like pretty much the same saturation. So I didn't really notice anything too off about that, to be honest. But it was done. During development, we had feedback that players were confused between the Portal and World tabs for where to find core game activities. Many gravitated to the familiar Director UI, so we chose to visually adjust it. But it is clear now that we overreacted to that feedback. I mean, I don't understand. I guess in very simple terms, I'm like, oh, you desaturate it so it seems less important. But I don't think that was like a good solution, to be honest. It feels like extremely lazy. I'm not gonna lie. Like it feels like, oh, what can we do? Just desaturate it. I'm like, I don't know what they could have done to like, you know, guide people more towards the Portal tab. Like, I don't know. But they have like a star over the Portal tab and everything. I guess like maybe remove the option to even click into Vanguard, Gambit, Crucible, or Legends. Like just remove those, to be able to click in those options. But technically those, it's not like any of that content has gone away. So you can still access that content through those tabs, which, you know, I guess people will be more upset if they completely remove those and you weren't able to access anything to them. But the Portal is like fairly intuitive. They have like a star over the Portal tab. And in the end, our intention going forward is for the Portal tab to serve as a quick access point to core game activities, and for the World tab to support exploration of the Destiny world. Both are important to us, and we will continue to upgrade both. I feel like that's probably the best solution. Have the Portal tab for the quick instant stuff, go to your activities quickly, and then when you want to go to something in the world, you can just go to the World tab. I feel like that's probably the best about Worlds. Moving further into the Portal though, we do have the ability to select difficulties and add and select and change difficulty modifiers. I won't go into the whole power grind aspect right now, mainly because I'm still experiencing it. I will say 200 to 300 feels slow, but it's also kind of boring because one of the biggest problems is that the bonus reward of your like pinnacle gear that you're getting to upgrade other gear is like capped. Like sure, once you hit the max reward rank, whatever, but like it's, the problem is like you're going higher in difficulty doesn't actually net you more rewards once you've hit the threshold. So the highest level difficulty usually isn't even that difficult. So it's like, oh, I'm having to do a bunch of not completely exciting or difficult missions at all to then try to get to master tier, where I feel like I'll have more fun because it's like, because to be honest, a lot of these missions are on expert, even with like Bane's is a complete freelo. So I feel like they should actually lean into doing more difficult content. Actually gives you more reward, like maybe more loot drops and based on how much the combatant power versus your power differential is, that gives you even more points into, you know, your next pinnacle drop or whatever. That would probably be an okay solution, but I'll be able to flesh out my thoughts more on this once I actually get into it. But on face value, I really like the ability to have modifiers and banes and other bonuses and other meta stuff. Like the way, yeah, like the potential and concept of the portal and being able to have my own modifiers is at least very good. Solo ops also are okay. A lot of them are still way too easy. I don't know how, like, I'm sure it will get a bit harder in Master, but it's like, you know, I understand their solo ops are pretty simple. If it's like, surely, you know, maybe they can add a Grandmaster mode and that'd make it a little bit better, get some better drops on that or whatever. But also there's like not actually that many solo ops, or I suppose in the future, once they add more and more solo ops, you know, having that variety will be good. Some of the solo ops actually do change like enemy combatants or whatever, which is cool, and they have been updated to have the new enemy combatant units in there. Like I remember going through like the salt mines and there was like Taken and there was a subjugator and there was like actual darkness blast that you had to avoid. I was like, oh, this is sick. Now if only any of the enemies actually did any damage or any of this actually mattered, but I'm sure it will probably get a little bit harder in the future. But I wish I could just go harder right now and get better loot drops rather than cruising through like the freeload sections until I can actually get it harder. And that kind of also hurts like the feeling of the power progression, because sure, my power number is getting better, but like generally the activity difficulty is like the exact same, or it's starting out easy and it's staying easy and it's only gonna get harder once you get to the harder difficulty. And it's like it feels a bit in conflict with how they want power progression to feel. Like it just feels like, I think that also has something to do with like the power delta caps or whatever. I'll have to look a little bit more into that system and how exactly those work, but it feels like you aren't like, sure, you're getting more powerful, but that's it, mainly not in terms of your power number. It's kind of in terms of like if you can get like a good piece of gear to drop, boom, that can increase your power, specifically armor and armor 3.0. We'll get into that a little bit later, but you know, for now, I really dig being able to choose modifiers, and I would like to see them expand on a section, go even more into the roguelike stuff, like maybe have different starting points, different end bosses, stuff like that would be sick. So I definitely at least see the potential in a system like this. There are some modifiers that are really cool, like battlefield promotion. You may encounter combatants who were recently promoted. When a combatant defeats a player or another combatant, they get promoted. Like that's a really sick concept. I'd love to see them actually expand on a system like this. There are also other modifiers like zero gravity, and dude, playing liminality with zero gravity, oh my god, dude. With Warlock Jump, it was miserable. I'm not gonna lie. Like, oh my god, I was like, bro, this is not it. Trying to do the mechanic with the fire pit and grabbing the ball, oh my, dude, not okay. Like I sometimes it's like, dude, zero gravity with Warlock Jump was so bad. Unironically, I was like, wait, now okay, like if you have complaints, like if this is what the Edge of Fate campaign was like with zero gravity everywhere, bro, it'd be so over. But like zero gravity, unironically, Warlock Jump way worse than Matterspark, and it's not even competition. Like, dude, I can like that was unbelievable. That was so frustrating. But yeah, moving on to some general looking stuff. I mean, we got some neat looking weapons. I know a lot of them are obviously, you know, have the base model with stuff attached to it or reskinned or reissued. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of these weapon types, and some of the new weapon types do look pretty good. Warlocks are kind of up good with the armor and helmet sets. I'm not gonna lie, like I was like, wait, every single one except for the Edge of Fate basic armor set, the Kepler basic armor set helmet, like everyone is pretty good. Like, and it's mainly the problem with the Kepler helmet, like you've seen it in the trailers, is the stupid spike things. They don't even circle around on the back. They're like just like little pokey. Okay, it looks stupid. I really don't like that Warlock helmet, but the rest of them look pretty good. The Bushido set in general for every character is sick. Definitely one of the best sets they've introduced as just like, you know, pinnacle drops, which is, you know, part of the portal system. Pretty cool. The final mission was excellent. Peak. Personally for me, way better than, you know, the Savinin fight, or, you know, not even the Savinin fight, just like the Savinin location. Infinitely better than Callus. And I'm not gonna lie, the skybox also probably made it better for me, at least in terms of visuals, than it was for the Witness as well. Like, I think the location for the Witness was cool for sure, but I don't think it, like the skybox in the final mission of Edge of Fate was actually like peak. Like, that was crazy. The fight though was not like, okay, I should also talk about difficulty. Completely way missed, you know, the part of mentioned as in the campaign, but I did the solo legendary, and overall, it was like, okay, the problem is I recently played through the rest of the campaigns, and they're all on legendary. I basically did all of Lightfall on White Gear. I did literally all of the final shape on White Gear on Hunter, and I'm not gonna lie, the legendary campaigns I don't think they've ever been hard, at least not in this current sandbox. Like, maybe when Witch Queen was first released and legendary was first introduced, it might have been, you know, slightly more challenging, but like last season, like the campaigns were not difficult at all. Like, most of my deaths were like to jumps or missing a jump. I didn't die at all during the Southland fight. Lightfall had the hardest mission, honestly, the two hardest missions, with Headlong and the Callus fight. The Callus fight was annoying, mainly because, you know, I had all white gear and no exotics, and so I was primarily relying strictly on the Strand grapple. Not even Strand grapple. I guess technically I was relying on Strand grapple, but I was just relying on the Strand empowerment that you get for that fight. And same with Headlong, the time trial mission, the Vex that actually spawned, they were like peak annoyance, the hobgoblins shooting you. Oh, and speaking of, every sniper I feel got like a stealth AI buff, because man, snipers in Edge of Fate, they were hitting every shot. Like, if I died to an enemy, it was a sniper. Like, bro, they need to get out of aim labs. Like, holy. But yeah, I definitely feel like snipers definitely got some sort of AI buff, or like, you know, they got a bit more of that aim lock on them. It's crazy. But yeah, Headlong was annoying because I was also relying on Strand grapple, and the boss was annoying, the Wyvern annoying. Like, with no resistance, you're like always in melee range. It was like, that made it annoying. But funnily enough, it was those two missions that like were the hardest, and that was because I was relying primarily on the Strand empowerment kit with no resistance. It might be even easier in Edge of Fate now that resistance is more uniform, and I don't have to worry about only having 5% damage resist. I can just have, you know, I think it's base tier 10. Everyone has like base tier 10 damage resist now. So honestly, with Edge of Fate, those legendary campaigns might be easier, although I think they did shift some power deltas or whatever, so it'll be interesting to go back to those. But I mean, the legend campaigns were not difficult. Like, outside of if the Callus fight didn't have the two tormentors, and I wasn't only relying on Strand to suspend, dive, to then super the tormentor, and then wait for my cooldown to come back up, and my super, or deal with the second tormentor, and then waiting for that cooldown to come back up to then will Callus the final time, that would have been a perfectly fine fight. It was mainly just the tormentors and waiting for my cooldowns to come back up that made the Callus fight so annoying. Especially the arena, like no cover. You have to grapple everywhere. The Witness fight was probably the actual hardest fight. Like, during Sabbath, I didn't die at all. Like, that was honestly a pretty easy fight, all things considered. Like, I died twice before facing Sabbath herself to the projections just being complete BS and spawning on top of me. I was like, okay, sure. But the actual Sabbath fight, honestly pretty easy. The Witness as a final fight, easily the most difficult because there's actually mechanics to do. The subjugators are quite tanky, and the Witness can just one-shot you, so you actually have to play cover. Like, that's like the only mission in the entirety of like the previous campaigns that you had to actually play cover. So that was a good change of pace, and that's kind of what made it difficult. Shadowkeep and Beyond Light are complete jokes of a campaign, complete jokes of everything. Like, there's literally negative difficulty. The moon is not a good location at all. Talk about like one of the most boring locations of all time. I understand most of it was like imported from D1, but it's retouched up. Well, like, the moon is not good. The moon is so bad. The moon is terrible. Shadowkeep as a DLC was so bad. Europa as a planet was also pretty boring and not exciting. I think the weather could have been a neat gimmick, but the weather is okay. I will say, all the Clovis spray areas, the break-tech sections, once you got past the surface level, then design really kicked up a notch. Like, the surface level of Europa is pretty boring, but all the break-tech stuff was kind of really good. So, incredibly low lows on the surface of Europa. Like, sure, it's snow, but like, Besides like the very first initial like mission where you could actually interact with the snow physics, it lost its like charm pretty quickly, especially with the weather system. You can't even see half the stuff there, but yeah, the breakout locations were really good. And of course, I already discussed, you know, the other 3 campaigns that are just clearly so much better than Shadow Keep and Beyond Light combined. Like, it's crazy. Like Lightfall alone, like even though, you know, had some, the story was whatever, Nimbus was cringe sometimes, Rohan was not really a character. Like, just the way the missions were formatted were just a complete step up from literally everything that came beyond it. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, the legendary difficulty of Edge of Fate and Coupler, it wasn't difficult, but it's like none of the legendary campaigns really were that difficult, and Sunbracers is still really crazy. When you can actually, when your staff can just kill a red bar, Sunbracers is crazy. It'll probably fall off on like Mythic difficulty or whatever, especially since everything in well, the red bars in Mythic difficulty they're okay. Like, you actually do damage to them. It's mainly the elites and mini bosses and bosses that have infinite HP on Mythic difficulty due to no scaling, which like if they wanted to be a matchmaking activity, they should allow us to just matchmake into it, but whatever. Like, I guess it is kind of an interesting solo challenge. But yeah, I think like legendary could have just been like, normal just needs to be called storm mode. Legendary just needs to be called normal now, and Fable should become the new legendary. Oh yeah, we got a new bow archetype, part of the Vanguard ops. Boom, pretty good. I've gotten multiple drops of the Mercury, but I don't have one with Kinetic Tremors and Attrition Orbs, which is like the most important drop because primary weapons are down bad in Edge of Fate. Like, primaries are so down bad. Like, it's gonna require like a whole deep dive and exploration or whatever. Like, I don't know why. Like, primary weapons are not good in Edge of Fate, especially since they fixed a bunch of the ammo generation stuff. Like, dude, I'm not gonna lie, using a primary weapon is just like, in high level content is trolling. Like, obviously you can use whatever in low level content, but primary weapons are not it. You can just you can run double special pretty easily, I'm not gonna lie. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, yeah, something just needs to be done with primary weapons, to be honest. They're down bad in Edge of Fate. Like, special weapons are up huge. Mainly because of like how the ammo generation rework went. I haven't talked about that at all, mainly because it's like, it requires a lot more numbers and stuff. A lot more playtesting to really talk about it. I didn't have any ammo generation issues in the campaign. I know some people did. I mean, looking at like the one Mr. Ruffles' team, who's like, oh, ammo generation he had issues with, but I didn't use a rocket sidearm during the campaign because I'm a rake angle chill clip Chad. But yeah, if I was using Tinasha's, maybe I'd have some problems, but they did patch a bunch of the ammo generation issues a couple days ago, so that doesn't really seem to be that much of a problem anymore, which is, once again, why special ammos are up big. Like, holy. Besides the new bow archetype, there was also the raid. The crossbow is a legendary drop in the raid. I don't have much to say about the raid. Contest mode, like, I just knew based on how my lost contest mode went with Salvation's Edge that I might have been dedicated, but if I didn't have 5 other members that were also dedicated to get through the raid, and especially with the damage check, like, there was massive DPS checks in this raid that required tons of swapping, whatever, I was like, yeah, there's absolutely no way if I don't have a pre-made group that trying to do contest mode is going to be worth it at all, so I didn't even bother. I've been pretty spoiler free on all the mechanics or whatever for the raid. I do know that there's obviously the crossbow. I have seen pictures and thumbnails of the final boss. I can't really say anything about the raid, which is a major part of the DLC, to be honest. So I want to do it blind, and I want to do the rest of the raids blind as well, and that's getting the people to do that has been a bit difficult. So, you know, PSA, join my Discord. Let me know if you've not done any of the raids or would like to help me complete it blind, because I think that's the best way to do any content in this game. Just do it blind. Like, I hate looking up guides or whatever, because it's like, oh, I'm just following what the guide says, when a lot of the charm in Destiny and its content is like figuring out what to do by myself. And that does bring us into Armor 3.0. And I'm not going to go over all the armor set bonuses, but the fact that armor is actually relevant, even though apparently some of the numbers aren't exactly accurate and some of what the UI is saying is like kind of bugged, it does seem to at least generally be, the more you put into the stat, the better it will be. And that's really, really apparent with something like weapons. But the fact that there are armor sets is a huge step up. The fact that there is armor with armor sets that you can build into, you know, actually slightly add more uniqueness to your build or shift how the playstyle is, is an excellent idea. And the fact that, you know, stats are no longer completely useless, because like once I got like 100 resilience and 100 grenade, I literally like, even as a new player, I literally just didn't have to farm for armor at all, and it felt like completely, it did feel kind of weird just like not engaging with entire, you know, system. So armor set bonuses, it's crazy that these didn't exist until now, but they are here. Some of them are okay, some of them are pretty good. Like I think they kept like the Bushido set, pretty obviously, final blows with freshly drawn or reloaded weapons heal you. I mean, pretty crazy, especially on a bow. And even the 4-piece, I mean, it works even better with a bow. There's also the kinetic set, which seems pretty interesting if you want to lean into that kinetic playstyle. Then there's the Kepler 2.0 after completing the mythic missions that are also seem pretty good. But the rest of them, are like kind of whatever. So I think in the future, you know, once there are more armor sets available for you to grind, then it will make a lot more sense, especially once you can combine multiple 2 pieces that are pretty good. But, you know, it will take a while to get there. And also, speaking of while to get there, the archetypes, not every stat combination is possible, and that's kind of annoying. Like, sure, it's not required, especially now, like the contest mode rate is over. Like, there's no real reason to have that's why I didn't even bother farming for any illegal pieces or anything. I just turned in my engrams to the failsafe and just got whatever I had the rest of that from there, which I didn't get too many pieces of. But, you know, it's like, I wish there were more archetypes available. Like, I would love for all the archetypes to just been available, but that does seem like it'll happen over a period of time. And then once they have all the archetypes, the system will feel a lot better because there'll also be more armor sets. So yeah, it's just the pains of implementing a brand new system. I kind of understand them not wanting to put everything in right away, but also it's like, well, how much more difficult would it have been to just like implement the archetypes at the very least? Like, sure, armor sets takes a while to like balance them or think of ideas, whatever, since there's a 2-piece and 4-piece. Surely we could have at least had old archetypes. Yeah, so, but I do at least definitely like the idea of armor sets and the tier system giving you more bonuses. I'm probably going to do an entire video on the weapon tier system by itself, because I feel like people just, it's like, you don't like tier, like technically a tier 1 can be better than a tier 5 simply because the perks are what determines how good a weapon is. So it's like, optimally, you'll probably at least want a tier 2 to get the perks enhanced, but it's like, you definitely do not need a tier 5 weapon at all. Like, oh, sure. Wow, my barrel's enhanced. Wow. Like, I guess it's good to have, like, you know, that high-end loot chase, you know, especially since they can come out hollow foil or whatever, but it's like, it feels like, at least with the weapons, they can make it a lot more, you can make each tier even more important. Like, I would go as far as implementing, like, certain tiers have certain perks. Like, tier 5 has, like, a perk you'd only get on like a tier 5 weapon, and I would go that far to make tier 5 like actually, you know, something you would want to grind for, rather than like, oh sure, you get a hollow foil, you get some enhanced perks, the enhanced barrel, enhanced origin trait. I guess it's nice to have, but it's like, it's so minor in, you know, the grand scheme of things. But I don't know, people might get mad if there's like if you need to get to tier 5 to get certain perks. I feel a lot of that problem has to do with how kind of slow our current progression is in terms of power, and more so the fact that once Renegade releases in 6 months, it's gonna get, your power is gonna be reset. That doesn't feel like power. Yeah, like it doesn't feel good having your power reset after just one expansion, especially since they're doing 2. I think they should have power be a continuous thing for the entire year of prophecy, and then once the year of prophecy is over, then it totally makes sense to reset it. But I feel like having your power reset to 200 for each expansion just isn't completely good enough, or it just feels, it's like, just in theory it feels bad. Like, obviously we'll see how it plays out in practice, but just based on, you know, how my progression is going, it's like, well, I just want to be at 300, and honestly, if you were reset, if you got to 300 and you're just reset to 300, I think that'd probably feel a lot better, since you're not locked out of, like, you know, master tier difficulty stuff, and then you do grandmaster, get to grandmaster later. But I'll have some more thoughts on that once I actually experience more of the progression system through that, or the power progression system. The shooting range, I can't believe there has not been a shooting range until now. Excellent addition. But to be honest, I still feel like it's good to get the raw numbers on stuff. So for people who are doing like pure analysis on stuff like that. Really good to get the raw numbers. Just it's also good to just be able to shoot and test weapons. But to be honest, I'm doing a lot of my testing on just Mythic World here, simply just because it's Mythic level enemies. I feel like that gives a little bit better of a real world reproduction of how my stuff goes. Like when using abilities, how does my ability, like what damage is my ability using to this certain type of enemies? It just makes a little bit more sense to me in Mythic World here, or at least testing my abilities and stuff. But that's also because I'm not doing like hard damage number testing or whatever. But for stuff like that, the shooting range makes a lot of sense. I do think there can still be a couple more options to be added in the shooting range, but maybe I haven't found them all. But I would like for you to be able to like add ads and big enemies and elites and mini bosses in the shooting range at the same time. You might be able to do that. I just haven't played around in the shooting range enough because, like I said, I kind of just prefer testing in the Mythic world here just to get a more real world feel of how my weapons and equipment is actually performing. And I do know Mythic tier, not everything is that insane, but it's like, okay, well, if it's performing at like the highest level content available to me, it's probably going to perform in everything lower than Mythic. So the final question I'm left with, even though this entire latter half has not been really dealing with Edge of Fate specifically, is Edge of Fate worth it? And my answer is maybe, like, it would be, okay, so Edge of Fate is $40. That's something you have to consider, the price. $40, I mean, that's basically like a double A game. It's pretty steep, like, not Edge of Fate, the final shape, Edge of Shape, yeah, for sure. The final shape was $50. I bought the deluxe edition, but just the base version, $50. And comparing Edge of Fate to the final shape, like the final shape, like, yeah, I know, like the final shape was just like, the final shape. Like we had prismatic, the levels were crazy, the build up to the witness, everything was literally just peak in final shape. So it's like $40 for Edge of Fate, $50 for final, or Edge of Fate. No, it is Edge of Fate, and then $50 for the final shape. Like, if Edge of Fate was $30, my recommendation would be a lot more solid, primarily if you care about the narrative and story of Destiny. I think, that part they completely nailed. The gameplay could definitely, like, man, if the puzzles were actually puzzles, my recommendation would be even stronger. Like Edge of Fate, I give like a strong C+, B- if I'm feeling a little bit more generous, which, B- if I'm considering, the fact of everything else that released that isn't technically a part of Edge of Fate. But should I really include that? I guess it's part of the patch. It's not really part of the expansion though. The raid is also there. That's not something I've currently experienced, but if you're going to participate in the contest raid, you're not watching the video right now. That wouldn't make any sense. And I'm pretty sure any price would justify being able to do a contest raid and get go for worlds first, blah, blah, blah. But to the average person, if you're interested in the story, I'd say yes, but maybe wait for a sale. Like $30 would be a lot stronger of a recommendation. $20, I think you would be like, oh yeah, just buy it for the campaign, because the campaign is straight up like what? It took me like 12 hours to clear it solo legend. Pretty long campaign. There's tons of side quests. So if you care about the story and narrative, then it's definitely more worth it than if you care about the gameplay side of things. If you're more interested in the gameplay side of things, I mean, the portal and whatnot, all that stuff is, free. So you can just play Destiny 2 for free and experience some of those changes for yourself. But yeah, it's not a strong recommendation, at least not at the current price of $40. At $30, it does become a recommend, and at $20, it is like a strong recommend. But primarily if you care about the narrative of Destiny 2, which I honestly think, to me as a newer player, it's not up there with Final Shape, but I didn't have the investment into Savathun as like a character or villain or whatever, and I didn't really and I'm taking for granted legendary campaign, so I don't have too much emotion attached to that and many of the massive changes that happened to the campaign as a part of Witch Queen, since that was pretty much how I was introduced to Destiny in the first place. And like going back to the older campaigns after the first mission of Lightfall, I was like, wait, this is so bad. But yeah, narrative wise and story wise, like like the final shape had problems in the first half, but the entire second half was so good, and the entire resolution, like honestly impressive work on the final shape. Like the final shape is just like they really nailed it. But Edge of Fate is honestly a close second, closer than I thought it would be for sure. At least in terms of the narrative and campaign side of things, or story campaign side of things. There was a ton of dialogue. Like the side quests have even more dialogue. Big fan of the dialogue boxes as well. Like, man, the narrative was really good of Edge of Fate. And I like, you know, it's a close second, but that's only because the final shape was like the conclusive arc. So it's like they really nailed the ending. Like the ending of the final shape really surprised me. Same with the ending of Edge of Fate, by the way, also insane. But Edge of Fate is setting up the potential, while, you know, the final shape delivered on potential that was set up. That, you know, Shadowkeep and Beyond Light, there's like, if you play like playing those campaigns and playing Lightfall even, and realizing where the final shape went, I was like, man, if Lightfall was more focused and was instead like the first 4 missions of the final shape, dude, that'd be crazy. And final shape was like, yeah, it really is only like the beginning of the final shape that's a bit weak. But you had Prismatic, you had the whole leanings, you had all the gameplay side of final shape, level design. There's so much adding to the final shape, and you know, it's basically when I started playing Destiny. So it's like there's so much to the final shape that's like, it's hard for me to like think of the Edge of Fate campaign or story as better, mainly because it's easier to start a story than it is to end it, that's for sure. And the way final shape ended was pretty good. But yeah, a lot of ranting, a lot of meandering. Is Edge of Fate worth it? At $20, 100%. At $30, if you think that's fine, I think $30 is fine, especially if you're gonna play the raid later. And $40, it's a much tougher recommend. Like, is it worth it? Like, if you are invested in the story and narrative side of things, yes. But if you're like completely jaded, I don't know. Like, yeah, if you're completely jaded, just like wait for a sale. Like, if you're gonna come back to, if you're interested, you can obviously play the stuff in the portal just to test it out. But yeah, that's my final statement on that. Is Edge of Fate worth it? Depends on the price. $20, yes. $30, it's a recommend. Or $20, it's a strong recommend. $30, it's just a recommend. And $40, it's like, if you really care with the narrative. Yeah, I repeated that point like 4 times, but it's okay. Come on, you're a Destiny player. It's like, you need me to repeat things for you anyway. It's like how Queen Ikora repeated Savin was the god of lies like 10 times. That's like, okay, I got it. Thank you. Any questions? No, but seriously, if you think there's anything I missed, which I probably did, you know, leave a comment down below. If you agree or disagree with me at any points, I guess also leave a comment down below. But that's pretty much it. I will be coming out with a full-on campaign commentary pretty soon, eventually in the future. But I'm currently working on a brand new series, because new expansion, new series. That's that'll be pretty interesting. That'll be pretty fun, and I'll come out with a future video on like how the power progression feels, more changes to the portal system, my thoughts on it, blah blah blah. Once I get a little bit more intimate and familiar with the systems, and I'll put out some build videos, I guess, and some more solo dungeon clears. But yeah, that's it for me. Cheers.